So we know that the school board has a policy in place about the possession of weapons in schools, but there's an exception to weapons under the control of law enforcement personnel and items approved by the building principal as part of class or presentations. So, in light of the issues involving gun violence that we've seen recently, do you think that the policy should change to not allow any weapons in or around schools by anyone?
I do believe I believe that our campus police officers are important. They are essential, and I believe that they are the reason why we have not had as much violence as compared to other cities as it pertains to mass shootings or school shootings, etc. However, the superintendent and the school board kind of wiped out the campus police officers, so now students and the community people can walk into the schools freely. Some of the metal detectors are not working. Some schools don't have metal detectors, and it's creating a problem because we've seen several schools have threats. We've seen several school buildings or students walk into the school buildings with weapons, and it's not safe. And so that's one of the things that is on my platform is discussing safety, finding a way to bring our campus police officers back, maybe have a different face, maybe have a different way of of work, but bringing them back in a space where we know that our students can feel safe, because we know that if our students do not feel safe, that it's hard for them to learn, and it's hard for our teachers to teach if they don't feel safe as well. And so safety should be always our number one priority. Our approach is everything. And so maybe it's revamping how our police department was working. Maybe it's saying, hey, because with the schools that I've worked at and some of the people that I knew who were officers actually spent time mentoring the young people. So I started a program when I was at King High School, and it kind of went over to several other schools. The officers actually had opportunities for people to come in and talk to them, share things with them, whether it was they were being bullied or whether, and so we just need to put a whole new face on it. We need a reconstruction of the police department. I love the way that they call it now public safety. That is a good idea, but they don't have any officers inside the building. So we saw an issue that we had at East English Village where it took an hour for officers to get to the school because of something happening. And so now teachers were hurt. The principal was actually hurt. Several students were hurt. And that's just not the way that we want our school system to be ran. That's just not how it's supposed to go.
I'm going to defer answering that because I have not been fully aware of that gun policy to that degree that I would not want to make an uninformed comment at this time.
Well, I'm not in that space yet, honestly, because as much as I'm in the schools, I just see a lot. I think it was important to realign our department, and you notice they're no longer called DPSCD PD. So they're no longer called the police department. Now they're called the public safety team. One thing that I don't think that we've done a really good job, I sat down with them and they did this presentation basically of who they are, what they do, right? So not who people say they are, but who are they really and what do they do? And it was so much. And I really think that the community needs more of that information. So I would love to have an information session around our public safety team because, I think being able to know our students and know our families, there's a huge advantage to that versus having someone from the outside come in. They control the training. So de-escalation and things of that nature. We don't want people to think that they are policing students because that's not their task. What their task is anybody who is disturbing the educational environment, there are consequences to that. And those consequences they vary, right? They can go from 0 to 10. But I think it's important as parents, we know that parents' number one goal when they send their young person to school is to know that they're safe. So what does that look like and who can provide that? So as we continue to try to rebrand them, it's really educating the community. And so that there is this give and take on both ends in terms of who they are and what they do, not who people say they are or people guessing what they do. A lot of times it is not the students, but it is the community who comes in and disturbs the learning environment. Not from what I've heard, what I've seen and experienced, those who are not looking to come in and have great behavior. And they're adults, right? And so they're not displaying it, they're not modeling it. And then we wonder why the young people can't do it because of those that they see. So I think there's an opportunity to share and even open up to decide, what does that look like? Even in my mind, they don't have to be in uniforms, right? Maybe it's khakis and a shirt, and we've seen that they're gradually going into that space. But I think there is still a certain level of respect that comes with the uniform, but we don't want people to be afraid. We really want people to understand that they are there for their safety and protection, not seeing some of the things that they see in society when it comes to the men and women in blue.
That's a very good question. Even though staff would know how to use weapons, I still don't think it's a good idea. Anything can happen. Accidents happen. There should just be protocols in place for safety so that students and staff know exactly where to go, where to hide. I just don't think having weapons in the school is a good idea, not at all.
I think those who are law enforcement agents or members of law enforcement should be entitled to carry guns. This is a horrendous thing. You know, it didn't happen when I was in school. I went to Northwestern High School. I graduated from Denby High School. Back in the old days when, you know, this is what we did, this is what we used to settle disputes. Now they're using bullets, and that is very, very upsetting. I think the problem is maybe greater even in suburban school districts. That's where we seem to have these mass shootings. But having been a teacher and administrator in Detroit public schools for many a year, we've had to deal with weapons more recently than in the old days. And it's a very, very serious problem. But yes, I think law enforcement should be able to carry weapons to protect our kids.
Thank you.
I think the policy being put in place to not allow, you know, any type of, you know, guns or weapons inside the school system, I think it is a policy that should be enacted because it keeps our children, our students, and keeps, you know, the security and the staff, you know, safe. And, you know, sometimes you have different issues that deal with inside, you know, the school board. So where you have these students and stuff, where you see all these mass shootings around when they come to school, you know, with guns, right? And so if we act the law and say, you know, where you can't come into the school with a gun, but if you're a security officer or that type of people, you can have it inside the school system, you should have it somewhere else, and then you leave a liability to where a student or a staff member or anything can happen to where they're able to go inside the school system and have easy access to a gun to make those gun shootings and so go up. So I would not support a policy that would allow guns inside of the school system, because I think it's a liability and a safety issues, and it makes our children feel more vulnerable. It makes our children feel unsafe.
And just as a follow-up, DPSCD just sent out a robocall stating that they will be investing money to bring police officers back onto school grounds at the start of the fall semester. So do you agree with this decision? And if not, where would you like to see this money invested instead?
I think when it comes to the security of the school is one of the most important things, is making sure that we have the proper security procedures put in place. So I do think that there should be, you know, law enforcement and security enforcement, you know, inside of the schools. And I know, you know, one of the issues that we've been having with DPS is having a shortage of security officers, or having, you know, a shortage of officers who are actually able to work the security of the schools. So how do we, you know, invest money into something, but make sure that we're investing the money into the right thing, but make sure that we can be effective if we're just going to invest money into security, but not investing the right dollars. And I think that goes back to the question that you asked earlier: how do you get the community involved with the school districts to make sure that our schools are a decent and safe place for our children to come to? And that's when you go into those small businesses. That's when you go into those businesses. We have a lot of businesses around the city of Detroit that are licensed and insured, and they have reputable security companies. And I think those security companies should be able to come into a DPS and have contracts with DPS so that we are able to bridge that gap between those security shortages to help out the security within our schools, but also is helping out the community, because now we have community patrol people and community security officers, and they're working together to make sure that our students are safe.
Oh, I agree with the decision. I think our kids need protection from law enforcement, by law enforcement. not from law enforcement, by law enforcement. We're living in frightening times for the children.
And thank you for your response.
Welcome.
I'll be asking the next question.
Okay.
So my name is Juanita. I am the youth league organizer for Forge Forward. We have been communicating back and forth.
Yes, we have.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you're here and we're able to interview you. My experience with 482 Forward is I was once a part of the youth in the youth collective, and now I work for 482 Forward. So just a beautiful full circle right there.
Maybe I should be working for 482 Forward. Looks like you guys are doing some good stuff. I like it. I
Thank
like
you.
this.
So my question is, the state's 2023 budget includes $150 million for mental health within schools. Do you believe that it is an appropriate amount? And what do you want to see with those funds in DPSCD?
I think that they are well spent and will be well spent. The pandemic has caused an awful lot of difficulty emotionally among young people and among older people too, but certainly money invested in mental health is a good place to put money. I agree with that.
Thank you for that.
Yes, I'm in favor of having police officers in the school. For deterrent purposes, somebody want to come up, they see a police officer, they'll think twice. It will build a bond between students and the officers. The officer will get to know the students and the students' family. They will have a rapport with the students, therefore making students feel safe. If I have a rapport with an officer and I'm a student in the school and I can speak to, hi, officer so-and-so, hi, officer so-and-so, and they speak back and call my name, then I'm gonna think, oh yeah, I'm gonna be well protected. And so the fear disappears and the helping comes in and the willing to participate.
So I agree with it. Actually, I was one who voted in favor of that. And so what we talked about, we know when we had the situation at Oxford, right? So there were people who panicked, but there are a lot of people who reached out to us to try to see what were we doing. Thank God we've never had a situation like that. But I think there's a learning opportunity for all school districts. In some large urban school district like Chicago, they have SRO officers who are really they're officers from the city and they come into the schools. And I just think that, when you have people where it is not their everyday, all day task, I think there is something that's lost. I remember being at a football game the end of last year, and there were some students who came from a different community coming in. The officers knew who belonged to the school. And so they were able to stop something right in the beginning because they knew, they had heard some social media. Some of the people in the school were kind of telling them at the football game, it's going to be some stuff. And so you had parents who are afraid too. And so I think that when you talk about those spaces, it's really about trying to create some safe spaces for everybody in the school. So what does it look like as we go into the fall? Some of the discussions myself and other board members had was to make sure that there was safety patrols at each high school for sure. Our high schools are our larger schools and our those were the situations have happened in the past. There were officers who had to get to the school. Maybe some things, the outcome would have been different, but they weren't there at the school. So you have officers now who know the students, know the staff, know the communities, and know the families. And I think that's important. Now they are held accountable like everybody else. And so as we have this hotline on, if there's any appropriate behavior or if there's anything that needs to be investigated, we have an oversight committee where that's the committee who would do that. So you can do it anonymously. You don't have to say who you are, but you can report, and then the investigation begins even on our public safety officers.
One of the things that's on my platform is mental wellness. So a lot of candidates may be talking about mental health, but let's talk about mental wellness. We're just coming out of a pandemic. We have so many students, so many teachers who have been affected by, death, or, just sitting here on Zoom for 8 hours a day is rough in itself. And so there are so many challenges post-pandemic. And so we have to address those needs first. And so we've seen, and I mean, and the mass shootings does not just occur because of the mental health piece, but I believe that is a major issue that we're facing now. And so that's what we saw when we saw several schools was threatened, and thanks to Kim Worthy, she handled those situations, but we just don't know the trueness or the realness of every situation. But back to your point, I think that we should require a specific training for our officers. I think that we should provide resources for our students. So that's like I said, that's one of the things that's on my platform, is providing mental wellness support for our students, their families, and our staff, because it's important that we make sure we meet the needs of our students. But why meet the needs of our students and send them home and those needs are not being met? And so we need to meet the need of the whole child and the whole family. And so, like I said, talking about mental wellness, providing resources within the school setting, just like the superintendent said, we're fully staffed. That's not true. We have several schools that have vacancies, several schools who do not have the necessary staff members that's needed to provide those resources for our students as it pertains to mental health and mental support, mental wellness support. And so back to, like I said, talking about mental wellness, improving the training for our officers, improving training for our teachers, because again, everything starts with building relationships. If I don't have a relationship with my teacher or any staff member in my school, therefore I cannot come to them with any issue that I'm experiencing at home or in school or elsewhere.